Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I am Iris, this is Charlotte, and we are going to chat with you. It is time to chat about Neptune entering Aries. Now, of course, we had a taste of this April through October of 2025, but now, January 26th, Neptune makes its final entrance into Aries, and we are in a new cycle. This is, I'm just going to move her so she doesn't knock everything over. This is a new era. It is a rebirth for Neptune. Of course, we also know that this is happening in conjunction with Saturn, who will come into Aries on February 13th. We will have that conjunction between the two of them on February 20th. For the most part, I'm going to speak about Neptune and Aries themes. I have a feeling Saturn will probably work its way in there as well. But I really just want to speak about some themes. I've also seen some things out there in our astro mediascapes about Neptune and Aries that I'm probably going to offer a little bit of a different view of. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is this is happening under the overseeing of Sedna. So Sedna is galactic. She is so far away. Her orbit is around 11,000 years, and she is sitting at 0 degrees of Gemini right now. And so as Neptune enters into Aries, there's a sextile with Sedna. And they're still about 40 minutes apart. However, when we have our great conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, they will be in an exact sextile to Sedna. So that shows us archetypally what wants to seed into that conjunction. And that conjunction has everything to do with the new cycle of Neptune and the new cycle of Saturn. The other piece is I'm seeing a lot right now in kind of ascend into your higher self, ascend into the light. And while that is part of spirituality and it's part of narratives, this is about being in your body in a whole new way. Aries is the body. It is your primal flame. And it is a new era opening up of Neptune, meaning embodying your spiritual path in this life in a way that you literally have not been able to before, that none of us have been able to before. And while there is value in doing the historical astro work and seeing what wars were happening and cycling through, we also need to be careful that we don't project the past onto the present. Because if our mind has already constructed an understanding, then that can be where we begin to direct our embodiment of the energy versus the co-creative embodied presence with evolutionary astrology is a very different path. And that is a path that really works with the elements. That's why for me, it's part of the witch's path. It's earth-based spirituality. And this is about fire. This is about embodying fire and embodying the fire that is the ultimate connection to the divine, because that in its purest form is what Neptune represents. And this is most likely going to bring some confusion. It is part of a complete dismantling and restructuring of reality as we have known it. That has to do with Saturn especially. But Neptune itself is also unconditional love. Now, Neptune is that which is beyond the day-to-day. It is dreams, it is creativity, it is making meaning and understanding through the creative spiritual process. That is a very different way of making meaning than through the rational linearity of modern meaning making and knowledge production. Neptune doesn't really fit into that linearity. And that Neptune is coming into Aries, which is how we literally incarnate into the experience of this plane, meaning that the experience in this plane is changing what it can be, but it's changing here. Yes, that is the beyond coming through, but it's changing here in a way that Sedna seeds into it. Sedna, the Inuit goddess of the ocean. And this is really important because Sedna is very recent as a dwarf planet into the collective consciousness of meeting her, of being aware of her. We don't discover them so much as they present themselves with us. And this shows why there's a new cycle beginning for human consciousness, for what we're capable of. And this also means, because Sedna is there, because Sedna is an archetype and a myth that is about living with the deepest archetypal wound that she could have, which is ultimately death by her father, who was supposed to protect her, nurture her. Also coming through the wounding of feeling like she didn't belong to her culture, to her lineage, even to the land, because she left the land, and then ends up capsized in a boat where her father, as we know, cuts her fingers off and she falls back. And she transmutes and she becomes the Inuit goddess of the ocean. And she brings in the depths of the ocean, the depths of the unseen, the coldness of the ocean, and the wisdom of the whales. And all of that is here, overseeing both the entry of Neptune and Saturn into Aries and their conjunction. And that's important because we are in a moment of the outer planets talking with each other, and we have had extremely close sextiles and trines, but in this moment, it is not Uranus and it is not Pluto that's here for this shift. It is Sedna in the exactness. And when we're dealing with outer planets, it's all about that exactness. Sedna is so far away. It's only when she's really within 1 degree, that we're talking about that converging. And it's happening. And so for you on your path, how is there a part of your spirituality? How is there a part of your own survival? Because Aries brings up survival. And instead of taking the binary that either you're a survivor or you've gotten out of that and now you're healed and now you're functioning normally, how can you recognize the creative courage that is inherent in all survival? Was it messy? Probably. Is it messy? Yeah. But there is creative courage. And that links us up to Sedna. And that is something to be emboldened, especially as it connects to your spiritual path. And those paths are changing, and how we walk them is changing. And something is being rebirthed here. But it is about coming into the body. It is about that awareness being in the flesh and grittiness of it all. Wielding flame. And that flame brings us into our spirit. It brings us into our primal drive, and it brings you into your desire. And your desire, what that even means, how we even hold that in our body, psyche, how we allow it to carve out the path, that's changing. And those of us especially who have quieted that desire, who have told ourselves from what we were taught that it was not right to follow that there was more responsible ways of being. Well, all this Aries energy has got some stuff to say about that. And we are being called to honor and literally embody desire. But it's desire birthed anew. And this is both the conjunction of Neptune and Saturn as well, and the structures through which we can move an interface. And Saturn, of course, brings in the crone wisdom that's converging with Neptune, that's seeding itself into Neptune, saying there are structures. And that conjunction is for both of them. Saturn learns from Neptune and Neptune learns from Saturn, and they both learn with Sedna. And there are structures, new structures, through which the ancient primal knowledge can walk through this life, can be in your body, can feel itself grounded into the earth, can bring that sacred flame into being. You know, Neptune is unconditional love. So what does it mean when the spiritual warrior is fueled by unconditional love? That's a very different type of warrior. And that's what's coming here. And Aries, of course, when Aries is driven by fear, Aries is impulsive in a way that can cause harm. You know, Aries has an impulsiveness to it that is absolutely not to be pathologized, not to be shamed. Aries is here to feel and act. But when Aries impulsivity is driven by fear, it's reactionary. And so instead of it being this birth of the primal flame that's literally coming out of spirit and the calling and the wielding in this plane, it comes from the churned up fear and grief and hate that isn't being processed. And that's when Aries acts in what is usually a power over way. And when Aries is caught doing that, it's not concerned about others. It's really not even always, it's concerned about an egoic fear. And so here, when that merges with Neptune, that gets really messy. That gets disorienting. That gets destructive. And yet, as you are on your path, because Aries is so personal, it is each of our paths. And as someone who is in this channel's community, I'm going to guess that you spend quite a bit of time reflecting on yourself specifically so that you don't act in that reactive way. And so as you're in your own journey with Neptune and Aries, which is lasting until 2038. In 2038, we will have the first shift of Neptune into Taurus. That will then go back into Aries. And then in 2039, it will move into Taurus. So you are in here for over a decade. As you are working with this, how is your sacred desire, where the sacred desire fuses the Neptunian spiritual presence with Aries flame? How is your sacred desire wanting to literally lead you forth in a new way? And here, that Saturn is coming is actually quite helpful, because Aries does just want to act. And then Saturn comes and says, sweet one, let's just pull it back a little bit. Let's just pull it back a little bit, because you're not looking at the cloud right there. And if you go out right now, you're not going to get where you want to go. But if you just wait an hour, that cloud, it's going to go by. You're not going to get injured, and you're going to be able to go. And Aries can use that with Saturn, talking to your spiritual primal flame, wanting to embody. What is your sacred fire? With old, ancient wisdom. A wisdom that is rising. And here we have crone wisdom rising with Saturn in all of us. For those of us who are willing to listen. And the willingness, this is Saturn, it takes work. But it's not the work that we were taught where we're supposed to dislike our work. It's the work that connects us to that thing that when you're connected to it, is the best thing there is. That sacred belonging, That's Saturn's work. And so there is new soul work coming in, Neptune and Saturn, to your path and your life to be embodied. It's going to take some time to learn to wield the fire. And this is really important because the way that media kind of works, and because folks are usually just working with what's trending and short form content, etc., we have these major shifts and there's like all this talk about it. And then a couple weeks later, no one's really talking about it. This is what happened with Pluto and Aquarius, right? 2038. So you don't need to be that like fire wielder who's just mastered everything right away. You're not supposed to. It's supposed to take time. This is a new reality forming. And this is a new cycle for Neptune. It's a 165-year cycle. And when we work with embodied astrology, it really supports us to understand how one cycle is always within another cycle, is always within another cycle. And this embodied path is not linear. It does not, okay, it ended, it began. That's not how it works. Anyone that has journeyed deeply with grief knows that's not how it works. There are other layers. There are other cycles. It's a spiral intersecting another spiral. And so just making sure that you don't put too much pressure on yourself that, oh, I should have it all figured out, or I should know Neptune. There's no figuring out Neptune. It cannot be done. It can be expressed, Neptunian meaning can be expressed, and that usually requires poetry or music or any form of aesthetic intervention. It can be expressed in the most beautiful sunset that you see or the storm cloud. It can be expressed and represented, but it cannot be figured out because it is literally what is beyond. It is beyond. It's a transpersonal planet. And so we are collectively going through major shifts right now, and we know that. And yet, there's this primal awakening, this path emerging, and it is taking us someplace we have not been able to go before. And so maybe the last point, really coming and bringing it home to fire, and how to honor, especially as we are working with the conjunction, but fire in general, Neptune coming into Aries, into this plane, beginning a new journey in a human body. There is going to be some purification going on. And so the more that you can kind of work with the fire ceremony, whatever that means for you and your practice and your lineages, that is going to be helpful. Because there is going to be a process of purification. And with it beginning with Saturn, with Sedna sextiling, there is nothing surface level about this. There is nothing to bypass. Bypassing this prevents the integrative, beautiful path from opening. And yet, the fire purification is going to bring up a lot. And, you know, fire often only gets talked about in terms of rage and anger, and it is that. And here you can also work with the difference between sacred rage and unconscious rage. The difference between sacred rage, which is a rage that has been met, and it's a rage that usually understands the grief that's also part of rage. And Neptune is grief. And so there is something about wielding fire. And here it is the fire within you that is connected to the primal sacred flames. That is going to be incredibly healing and paradigm shifting. And we are going to see the unchecked, unconscious rage manifesting. We're already seeing it. But what does it mean for you to work with sacred rage? Because rage is not bad. when it's coming from the fear-driven place and one hasn't spent what's usually decades befriending it, it usually creates violence. And yet this is an opportunity. Saturn conjunct Neptune. This is an opportunity for that crone wisdom to really surface and teach us all and become the leader. Crones, rise up. Rise up, because Sedna is calling you. And I've said this before, for folks who journey as survivors, this is a time for you to honor your courage and your creativity. There is nothing about this signature that wants to carry forth the shame that is often put on us from various ways, in complicated ways. Gus is shaking off. He's like, shake off that shame. That was a classic dog shake. For folks that are new, Gus is my dog. Shake it off. Because that survivor spirit is rising. And that is crone wisdom. You know, I'm talking about it archetypally, and then the way that you meet it in your own personal life. And Sedna transmutes from her role into the Inuit goddess of the ocean, and she journeys with us, and she is overseeing this switch. She is overseeing this birthing, and it is very powerful. There is a lot of power here, and wielding that type of power, it takes practice, it takes courage, it takes allowing oneself to sleep, it takes grounding into the body and feeling the fire moving through the body. And this is, and I think I said the last piece, but this is going to be my last piece, because fire is never separate from the body, nor is air. And there's a lot of rhetoric out there about how fast everything is going to get and how it's just taking us out and out. And that is a disembodied practice. When the elements are worked with from an embodied practice, yes, it speeds it up. Yes, timelines shift. Yes, yes. But it's always with the body. And Aries calls us forth to come into the body. Neptune calls you forth to have a relationship with your body that is fueled by unconditional love. To recognize that your body is part of how spirit moves you through this life right now. It may not be the body, but it is how it moves you through, and it's also how spirit speaks. And so the practices as we move further into 2026, especially as we do have Uranus move into Gemini, grounding the nervous system, working with the body, moving between your very slow down the process, yin yoga type of practice, and then those kind of more rigorous practices, always keeping in mind your own physical ability. What is rigorous for someone else might not be rigorous for you. Other way around. Never comparing ourselves to one idea that has been generated by a media machine that's just generating these ideas of what physicality even means to make a small group of people a heck of a lot of money. So letting all that go and coming into a rebirth of also a sacred relationship with your body in an Aries way, which is different than, say, a Virgo way. In an Aries way, it's loving your body because it fuels your spirit. It holds your spirit, and your spirit runs through it, and it's in your blood, and there's fire, magic in your blood. And so just working with it, being with it, allowing it, moving forward. We will be chatting about this more, but it is upon us. So here we go. I wore my fire red jacket just for Aries. And Gus is telling me that we got to wrap it up right now, so I'm going to listen to him. Neptune and Aries, love. Here we go. Bye-bye.